Array of multiples edit challenge, let's get started. Create a function that takes two numbers as arguments, num and length, and returns an array of multiples of num until the array length reaches the length. So let's look at the examples. We start with 7 and the length is going to be 5, so we can see this value is 7 times 1, 7 times 2, 7 times 3, all the way to 7 times 5. So let's get started with the code. We can see here that we have an integer array to return, so let's get started with that section first. We can have an int array, we can call it values, and we can make it equal to a new int, and then we can have it length. This second parameter tells us how long the array is going to be, so we can always initialize it as length. Because we know how long the array is going to be, let's leave it as an array instead of using something like a list. Arrays are static and lists are dynamic, but we know the length, so let's stick with an array. And at the end, we can just simply return values. In the middle, we just need a for loop, and what this for loop is going to do is count from 0 all the way to values.length, which will give us the length of how many we need. And then based on that index, we can take the number and do our multiplication. So let's see how that looks. So we can set up a for loop and we can say int I equals 0, and I can be less than the values.length. We do an I++ so we can go up in ones. And just in the middle of the for loop, all we need to do here is assign all of the positions one by one. So we take our values array, open our square brackets to access the index, and type in I. We want to start this as 0 because arrays start at 0. We could start this at 1 and make it less than or equal to, and we would have to do I minus 1 inside here, and that just decreases the amount of visibility we have in our code. It just makes it a little bit difficult to read. So let's revert that, let's keep it as I equals 0, and I is less than values.length. So we can just say values I is equal to, and then brackets, I plus 1, because our first calculation is going to be 7 times 1. Whereas if we don't include the plus 1, it's going to be 7 times 0. We actually want it to be 7 times 1, and that's 1 more than our index. So we always have to multiply it by 1, because our array is currently going to go from 0 to 4, whereas our calculations need to be 1 to 5. So we add 1 to I, and then take that value and multiply it by the num. And in the first example's case, the num is 7. So our first calculation will be 7 times by 1, and so on until we get to 7 times by 5, and therefore our loop will end, and then we can return the values at the bottom of the code. So let's check that and see how far we get. Perfect, so everything's actually done and all the tests are finished. So let's just have a really quick recap. So we've got int num, which gives us the number that we want to do the times table of, and this is going to be the number of how long the length is going to be. We first set up an array because we know it's going to be static because we have the length. We set up an array called values and we initialize it to the length we need. And we go through every single position in the empty integer array called values and take each position, take the index I, add it to 1 so we can get the initial value starting as 1 and the last value as 5, for example. So instead of 0 to 4, we're now going 1 to 5 in order for our calculation to work. 7 multiplied by 0 will not work in this circumstance. So we take I plus 1, giving us the first index as 1 and the last index as 5, and we multiply each one by the num, and for the first example, the num is 7. So we should get exactly this answer right here. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you want, feel free to join our Discord server, and it'll be linked in the comments below. Have a nice day, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.